Hello, welcome back everyone. Today we're going to add walking animations to our units. So let's get started. And we'll start by changing the name of the getIdleAnimationName for entity function in our ISO converter to just become a rename. getIdle and getAnimation for name for entity. So we'll make it more generic, and if everything went correctly, the name was automatically changed in all the dependent files. So let's see, so the build is still running and test should still work correctly. Okay, these are still passed, so that's nice. Second thing I want to do is I want to be able to pass in an animation name as a string and use that to get something else than just a walk animation. So we need to pass it in here as well because we're calling the function. So we'll pass in idle. But now if we go to our tests and try and compile, we see that we're missing some input. So let's augment our test cases a bit by not just adding a sprite rotation and expected value. Let's also add an animation here. And let's add it as a value here as well. And these are all idle. And then we need to pass it in here as well. So we can pass in test case.animation. And this one no longer complains. We need to do this a couple of more times. So also for the idle animation name for the night. And add it in the function call as well. And for this one as well. So this is a bit of a tedious thing, but yeah, sometimes these come along. I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the last one where we need to do this. Let's add it here as well. Let's see, maybe we're missing someone still. This is in the game scene. We're referencing it here as well. So let's pass in idle. And now we can build run our tests. And these succeed. So that's nice. So basically where we're started. With the one difference that we can add, we can start calling animation names. So let's get some actual animations. So we have some animation files in the walking.zip file, and we have them for the night. So I'll pick up the night ones and drag and drop them into the night folder. So here we have a walking around, and we do the same thing for the rogue. And here we can see them walking around as well. Okay, now we should take note on what of the naming of these animation frames. So they are named as unit name, the walking underscore B, and then the direction. So we need to get a name like this back from our get animation name function. So let's start by augmenting our tests to do so. So we want to get an animation name for an entity where night is passed in, and we create a couple more test cases. However, instead of passing in either, we pass in walk, and what we need to get back is walking underscore B, because that is what these night frames are called. So let's run this test. And it will fail because we're getting back night idle instead of night walking. So let's go to our function and make sure we're actually using our animation name as it is passed in. This still fails because although we get back wait a second. We can pass in the animation. And that's because we're trying to find an animation called walk. However, that doesn't exist because I think it's actually better to just return the animation one as a default. Because this gives a slightly more useful response. So what we will now see is that we try and find night walk 135, for instance, instead of night walking B 135. What we need is a conversion for the night as well, that for walking returns walking B. And now our test should pass. Cool. We can do a similar thing for the second test. And this one should just work. Okay. Now let's look at our rogue. So we can do a similar thing here. So let's take our rogue, pass in walk, and what we expect to get back is, see what rogue's naming is, walking underscore C. So we get back walking underscore C. So let's run these tests. And we see them fail. So let's go back to our converter and make sure we also have our walking conversion for the rogue. And this test now passes. This test now passes. So let's finally do that for this one as well. We pass and walk, and we get back walking C. Okay, so that's nice. Let's get rid of the get idle in the naming, because we're not just testing idle animations anymore, but testing all animations. So this should now run. So what do we now have? We have the opportunity of getting various animation names back for two different animations. Let's use these. So let's go into our game scene, and instead of, let's see, we have our get idle animation for entity function. I'm going to change this one to get animation for entity. And also I want to make sure that we can pass in an animation. This means that we need to pass in an animation here as well. And we have to make sure that we're actually using that animation. So let's run this one, and this should still work the same as before. Okay, so our knights are still idling in place. Let's show our walking animation. So change this one just for today to walk. And now we can see them, sort of walking in place. So this isn't awesome, but it's at least useful. Okay. Finally, let's rename this one to animation. So it's less dependent on specifically only returning idle animations, or at least from the naming that becomes a bit clearer. I'm going to leave it at this, because even though we don't have the units walking around yet, I wanted to make sure that we have the stuff ready so we can at least change the animations that we use and display them. In the next episode, we'll combine our walking animation with the path and finding we created to allow a knight to follow a path like this. Thanks for watching and have a good day.